Hi brothers and sisters, we're back for another video. Don't really know how to describe this topic, but we're going to take a look at a very popular poem in history. One of the writers that I used to read a lot of, I don't read him so much, was Dean Koontz, and he put this poem in a couple of his stories, and it was called The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. So let's just read it and see what we can determine by what's in the poem, and we're going to take a little bit of liberty here and see what our perspective becomes on this by understanding the truth that we've discovered in the Old Testament. So this is what it says, The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. It says, turning and turning in the widening gyra. Now, is that how you say it? You know, to gyrate, but to gyre, right? So, in a widening, it's ever widening, right? Widening. Widening again, right? The falcon cannot hear the falconer. So, the further away the falcon gets from the falconer, she's not able to hear the falconer. So, we have the idea of a widening orbit, getting out of orbit, all right? She's getting away from, I'm going to tell you, her mother or the Holy Spirit. So definition of a falconer: a person who keeps, trains, or hunts with falcons, hawks. Now there's an interesting one. Or other birds of prey, all right? So the Holy Spirit is often, defined in terminology of birds such as a dove. She's also identified as an eagle in the scriptures. And here, we get her identified as a falcon. And that word hawk here kind of leads me to that word ruby. Did I write it down? What's the word? I did write the number down. Why, I say I did. But the word ruby, if you look it up, it is so going to take us to see, I didn't know whether I was going to actually do all of that information. It's funny I didn't at least write the number down. I'm sure. Okay, sorry. So I didn't write the word for ruby down. But it's interesting. Okay, so we're going to do this. We are going to pull it up. I apologize. Strong's Hebrew is the one that we want, ruby. Okay, Strong's Hebrew, ruby. Why do we want ruby, do you think? Because of what it says here. It's a precious stone, perhaps a ruby, it says. It's from the same as cad. But when you go down into the notes, Brown, Driver, Briggs, it says nouns are masculine. I don't think these are masculines. These are feminine stones. Identified in Lamentations 4:1. When you actually go in and look all the words up, you're going to find out that your precious stones on the high priest's breastplate, which protected him, are female. So perhaps ruby from sparkle. Aramaic, it gives Ezekiel 27:16 as article of commerce, and figurative in promise to Zion in Isaiah 54 verse 12, which we've looked at. So this is the reason why we go here, because of the falconer in this poem, which is an odd thing to take a look at. Following compare Arabic. So you've got your Roman numeral V11, shoot or rush down of hawk, star, etc. Also of an attacking force. Yeah. So we get this sparkling gem, striking fire. We get the idea of embers. So I'm coming up on that understanding a bit better of these embers, okay, that is going to begin to burn into a great fire and will cleanse the land of the religious lie is your idea, which you're going to find in Joel. Anyway, so that, I mean, it's interesting to read some of these older poems, whatnot, because they say so many of these men were Freemasons, or they were part of the Illuminati, and so they knew things that we didn't know. But we know that they were told that they had to tell us the truth. They could tell hundreds of thousands of lies in the process, but somewhere in there they had to tell the truth. And so oftentimes when you go back in, you read some of these strange poems or passages that everybody goes, what does that mean? It is their way of telling you a truth once you're able to break it down. So here we go, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. So it's she who's listening to the Holy Spirit. She can no longer hear it because she's gotten out of the orbit. All right? We're in a different orbit. And that's why we speculated that we absolutely did get in a different orbit around the false light, the sun, because the Shulamite says, look not upon me because I am black, right? Because my mother's sons were angry with me. They made me the keeper of the vineyard, but my own I have not kept. So she also says the skin burns, grows black upon her, and peels. And it's identifying the fact that she got into the wrong orbit. She got away from her falconer. She got away from her Holy Spirit, from her mother, and from her words. And when she did that, you know what it says next? Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. What's the center? What's the center of your body? Your spirit, your soul. So things fall apart. That also has to do with Basra, the flock of Basra in the midst, that got changed out for a harlot spirit in the midst of the body that would teach a lie. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, and indeed it was, because they were not hearkening to the government of God, known as the House and Force of Lebanon, and her 10 Commandments. So the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. There we go. We begin to lose our innocence as we begin to become polluted in a world of violence and religious lies and a beast system that teaches violence and subjugations and oppression and war and all of these horrible things, and it really is a ceremony of innocence is drowned. We lose our innocence because of that. The best lack all conviction. They do. While the worst are full of passionate intensity. I see that from the pulpit. The best really lack conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Well, when you're full of a lie is a lie. It's not going to produce anything of any value. And so you see here, the best lack conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Really a bunch of fakers, a bunch of fibbers. It's kind of what you get away from those two lines, 2 sentences. So this is the next passage. Surely some revelation is at hand. He's almost mocking. Surely the second coming is at hand. He's mocking. The second coming! He yells it. He's got an exclamation point here. Hardly are those words out when a vast image of spiritus mundi. So let's define spiritus mundi. Definition: the spirit outlook point of view, or social and cultural values characteristic of an era of human history. So he says, when a vast image out of spiritus mundi, out of my spirit's point of view, out of my spirit's view, troubles my sight. He starts to become troubled in what he's seeing. Somewhere in sands of the desert, I was shown this in a dream. I won't comment on that. I have some ideas on it. A shape with, it says, a lion body and the head of a man. I think this is wrong. Yeah, he wrote it. He wrote what he wanted to say, obviously. If we liken to what we've come to understand, this is really a shape of a lioness body with the head of a woman, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. So what we are coming away here is the sun is the false light that shone upon us and made us black in the spirit is what we get. And so it's looking at the spirit being black and pitiless as her counterpart. She's beginning to move like her counterpart in many ways. So a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. Again, we see, kind of the on the ground and in the air type. They're moving together. This group is moving together. Is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert bird. The darkness drops again, but now I know. So the darkness drops again. What is that a reference to? Well, when we go to Joel 2, 1 to 11, there's a couple of verses in there, or maybe it's just verse 3. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. But it speaks of a day in Israel of darkness and gloominess in Joel 2, 1 to 11. And what that means is war has come upon the land, right? That's what darkness and gloominess means. It also has a reference to the dark veil that has been put over the entire world. And you find it, and I didn't pull this one out. I believe it's Isaiah 25. We'll look for it right quick here. And I know, nobody's watching me, that's fine. Not according to my counts. Nobody's interested in anything I have to say. So I can't really worry too much about what I got to say. What does it say? Right here, verse 6. So it's Isaiah 25, verse 6. And in this mountain, what mountain? Well, it's a mountain in Israel, Mount Zion. In this mountain shall the Lord of hosts make unto the people a feast. Yeah. Of fat things, a feast of wines in the least. No. Actually, the Lord's not going to do that. That was done under the religious lie of Baal as the idol, the bull that come out of, Egypt, a blood requirement. What she's going to do, I believe, is going to put in the one festival of joy, which has the idea of the rebirth of the Holy Spirit in the land. And that festival is going to be a festival of joy. And it's the one that they speak on that yet it is totally, they have no understanding of what that date is about. And it's the date, what is it? It's the it's Av 15. It's not Av 9. It's Av 15, I believe. And when you go in and look at what they say about that date, which I believe is Valentine's Day, technically like a Valentine's Day in Israel is how it gets celebrated. But they'll tell you that this is supposed to be, in the end, when all is said and done, the biggest celebration feast, not a feast of eating meat and all that, but this great celebration that they really don't know what the point of it is supposed to be. They haven't come to understand that. Well, I'm going to tell you it's the rebirth of the Holy Spirit in the land is what that's going to signify. And she will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast, the dark covering over all people, and the veil that is spread over all nations. So what they're going to want to do, the wicked, they're going to want to try to put that dark covering back in place. And that comes through great oppression and the removing of woman's rights under the law and even the she pronoun. That's what they want to do. They want to put that all back into play. So the darkness drops again. But now listen what the next verse is. Or not verse, but of the poem. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep, that was 2,000 years ago. Do we know what that is pointing us to? But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep, you women who are in deep stupor, Romans 11, because he pricked you, he stabbed you, he pierced you, he made you bleed. You went into a torpor, it says, a deep sleep. Your spirit did. You were in deep mourning. That's a symbol of blackness as well. Deep mourning. And that's what she did. So that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. So though you sleep, you're not having dreams, you're having nightmares. Which takes us to Isaiah 28, or 29. You will awaken as one from nightmare. Let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can locate it here. Pretty sure it's 29. Watch are cut off. Oh, where is it? No, that's best way to do this. Let's look it up here. Verse. Says 10. Let's see. For the Lord hath poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. Who? The daughters who represented the Holy Spirit upon this earth. And hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, have she covered. And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed, which men deliver to one that is learned, saying, read this, I pray thee, and he cannot. That's still not quite the verse I'm looking for. So is it 17? It says she will awaken from sleep as if it was a nightmare. And now I can't. Right there, verse 7. Now why didn't it give me 7? It does that. So verse 7, and the multitude of all the nations that fights against Ariel, even all that fight against her and her monition, and that distress her, shall be as a dream of a night vision. A nightmare. Something that you can wake up from. So here we have a rocking cradle. Remember who the men of Baal married? Baal. He basically married her and made her him, teaching himself as God. So she's rocking the cradle. The children were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. So we see all these references here that actually we can take it back to the Bible. And what does it say? And what rough beasts. Oh, have you thought a woman as a rough beast? No. But when she's married to Baal, eventually she does pick her head up and say, look, if I'm going to take him on, I'm going to have to become just what he wants me to be. And so, what rough beast, it hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So, who's being born? A new Israel, which is going to take us to Joel 2, I believe. I believe that's where it's going to take us to. And she has to become what she don't really want to become, but what she's got to become. She's been taught, the piousness, to be silenced. And as a witness in the earth, they want you silenced. They don't want you speaking, defending your cause, the controversy of Zion. God, stand up and defend your cause. And so in a sense here, she actually has to take on these same traits in order to defeat the beast system, is what she does. And so here you get this slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. That's the firstborn of mother's womb, the daughter Israel. And but we get it here in a very strange wording. So I'm taking some liberty with that. But it's very interesting that it is there. And we do find the remnant identified as women in passages like Zephaniah chapter 3 we've looked at. We find her in Jeremiah 30 or 31. We also find her in Micah 4 and 5, I think. And it's always identifying it as a group of women, who, she says, I will get you fame and glory in every land where you were put to shame, where you bowed to a religious idol of Baal as husband and Lord and God. And this whole poem, when you really start to break it down and read it, it's really telling you a lot, is what it's doing. So we have the scourge. We can kind of get this idea in this poem again, which is a whip. So that leads us back to Rehoboam, who threatened the people and said, "Oh, my father scourged you with whips. I'm going to scourge you with scorpions." And so all of these things begin to really take on a deeper meaning. When we really start to understand the language that God was actually talking and speaking to us in. So I don't know that's of any value to anybody. I doubt very much that it's relevant to much of anything. I couldn't help but think on this poem from the time I read it quite a few years ago in a book or a short story of Dean Koontz, whom I don't read too much of anymore, but he certainly was a good writer. Very good with his craft, I think. But from the time I read it, this poem really kind of stuck with me. It stayed with me. And it happened to come up in my line of thinking for some reason, because the Spirit does lead us. When I was trying to figure out the question that I really needed to ask, to be able to tackle the meaning of the covenant and what that all entails. And so what was the question that I had to eventually pose that was going to really answer this question? So what does it mean when it says in Isaiah 28:18, your covenant with death shall be disannulled? And there's the important key right there, disannulled. That's the word. And other verses in this passage that just, it's really helping me to identify what the covenant of God in the land is going to have to take on a life of its own. It's going to have to stand up and fight for itself. And that sometimes can look pretty nasty, and it can look like a rough beast at times. For those of us who don't want to have to do that, but again, I said in one of my videos, innocence is not stupidity. There is a reckoning coming, and she does have to stand up for herself, because he's not going to do it. If you leave it to him, he's going to put that dark weave and web of lies in play again. He's going to yoke you even harder this time around. Unless you stand up, start standing up for yourself, for the truth in the land. And when God says, I am no respecter of person. My covenant is a covenant of equity. You were to make no idols, neither male nor female, nor animal, nor fish. That's in Deuteronomy 4 when God says, and you uphold my 10 commandments. They didn't do that. They didn't do it. And the witnesses are clearly identified. She says, you silenced me. You thought I was just like you. Long time have I held my peace. Now will I no longer restrain myself. I'm going to set the Proverbs in order, and I'm going to tell you who the true living God is, because you don't seem to know God. You seem to know the idol of Baal, and you think that by putting your head down and acting innocent and stupid is going to get you saved. It's not. God says, stand up and present your case, God. And present your cause. And the word there in that passage, which we looked at already, for cause is controversy. You divided my pleasant land into two covenants, a woman harlot, spirit that would bow to man as God and build him up in the land. And my other daughters, my righteous daughters, you rejected in covenant, who was the wife of the original covenant. So we're looking at the establishing of that again. And in a sense, you do have to take the bull by the horns. Yes, you do. So there you go. I'm sure nobody will watch it. That's okay. I'm getting used to it. I throw videos up. I'm really starting to go, what's the point? Nobody's watching anything I got to say. Because you know what? If you make the mistake of saying Jesus ain't God, look out. Nobody will watch it. They don't want to hear the reasoning behind it and how you can so link it back to Old Testament idol worship. And while you're going through what you're going through, you're not going to be rescued. You're simply not going to be rescued under a religious lie, because we're told who your salvation came through in the Old Testament, and it was the daughter of Israel who was the cornerstone rejected from the very beginning, the righteous daughters of Israel. And they laid a false foundation, a harlot spirit, and she says, that comes in the form of an admixture of doctrine. It was her waters that you were to be washed in, not by blood. And she says, you don't see my footprints because it got covered over with an admixture of lie, the Red Sea. And only when you daughters determine to pick your head up and stand for yourselves this time, and to stand for your cause, and for your holy covenant in a land which represents me, are you going to be able to divide that Red Sea and deliver and birth your children out through? He can't do it for you. He can't do it no matter how many religious writings and yoking and silencing you from the pulpit with religious lies and a law that says woman has no voice, she has no form, she has no rights. There isn't even a she pronoun. Look at the Old Testament. Look at the New Testament. You think they ain't at it again? 2,000 years. Rock in the cradle. Shh. You're in a dream. No, you're in a nightmare. Wake up. Do something about it. Stand up for yourself. Become the rough beast that you need to be to take on the liars and the lying system. Pick up your sword. Sharpen it. Defend yourself for once in your life. Because they're not going to do it for you. We don't want bloodshed, no. But this covenant is clearly being fleshed out. It is being shown. You know what? You can act pious and innocent as you'd like, but you're going to have to take up your own cause. You are. That's what is being shown you. And look how far we are right now. Has the system improved? It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and nobody's standing. Getting better? Oh, we're just waiting to be rescued and delivered by a male idol that they built up to keep you silenced, oppressed, shut up, so you wouldn't stand up and witness in the earth and cry out for justice. No, it says none crieth out for truth in the earth. None crieth for justice in the earth. It's silent in the earth. Where are my witnesses? Where are they to witness to the truth taking place in the earth? Wake up. Wake up from the stupor that they've put you in a religious lie. Wake up from it. Start making sense. Start reasoning. Or the rod is coming, like it or not. It is so going to come for you. And you can either sharpen your sword, which is allegorical to your word, and have it prepared and ready, which is, in the end, actually going to arm you in a manner that we don't fully comprehend yet, which is why it's so important that we understand why the covenant of death and how the covenant of death actually gets disannulled. Yeah, that's an important word, disannulled. So I'm giving you some hints for the 1 or 2 or 3 people. I think there's 3 people that I'm pretty sure are with me. I think they understand a great deal of what I'm saying, because I think they really get in the word themselves, and I think they really study it, and they really look at it, and it really matters to them, and it's really vital to them. It's really important to them, just like it is to me. So I'm giving you a little hint there. Look the word disannulled up. It's very important. Research that and see what it really means. So anyway, thanks for watching. Perhaps a bit of a silly topic, but I do think it's pertinent even today, relevant today. Telling us things that they love to hide from view, and then act so superior and smart behind your back. Look what we know, and look what you're too stupid to know. Anyway, sorry. May the Lord bless you with an abundance of truth, and I hope y'all have a nice day, and thanks for watching again.